Hey, what's up, everybody? Rob Marzullo here, Ram Studio Comics. Hope you're having a great day. And today's video is going to be on putting hair on this bald lady that we got here. So I just sketched this up real quick. Not a perfect drawing, but it's okay. I think her eye's a little funky, but whatever. It's not about this. It's about what I'm going to show you. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I've done is created another layer. I actually start off with a sketch, turn it to blue line, draw over top, and merge those down. So now I've got another layer over top, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would construct hair on this character. We're going to do a couple different hair poses. I'm going to separate these into a couple videos, so that way I can really focus on each one, where I feel like if I do, maybe 2-3 explained hairstyles, then it's gonna get a little bit lengthy and washed out. I want to explain this process. So what I'm doing here is I'm first defining the shape. There's obviously so many different styles you can do when it comes to hair. You can do a couple different ways of how you define the shape, but what I like to do is first kind of draw a few wispy lines and kind of define a bit of two things I'm doing here. One is the flow. If you see these arrows here, kind of directing the flow of the hair like that. And the other is trying to create mass and definition. So even though you just see this little diamond shape in there, and this little point here, that doesn't look like much to you, but I'm actually picturing it already that this is shaded right here. And I'm gonna elaborate that as I keep going. But I just want you to see that I'm not just scribbling lines in here. If I did, it'd probably look more like this, and there wouldn't be any real flow. It would look almost rigid or not correct. I'm trying to define the mass, the flow, and a bit of segments or a bit of separation. So let's say that the hair does this. Let's pull like a strand here. As I've addressed in other videos, always try to think of them as flowing ribbons, and you'll get a little bit more of an idea of how the hair strands work. Always do the little flips at the end, and it looks a little more, pretty. Nice and pretty. So, just do that. A little flip there, a little flip-de-doo. Okay. So there's our basic hair shape. It's kind of a short hairstyle. Actually, let me zoom back here. Space bar to move it around. And you can actually hold shifts like both these. I'm showing the Manga Studio interface as I go here. Hit Command T or Control T if you're on a PC. And see how I can resize both of those layers instantaneously, which is awesome. Okay, so hairstyle. All right, almost there. Still, it looks boring, but actually this hairstyle isn't completed. What I want now is a little bit more. And let me point out one more thing real quick before I finish off the, I'm going to put a little bun on the back there. But see how, I've got this distance away from the cranium about there. That's bare minimal. I mean, in all honesty, you probably wanted a lot more than that, because hair has volume. One of the problems I faced when I first did hair, I'll have to whip out one of my old drawings or whatever, and it was really embarrassing. Like, I did this like flat skull cap looking thing. It's really bad, really ugly, but it's good to see that and see the progression and start to realize where your flaws are. Okay, so now this bun thing on the back. Actually, I still need more room. Go figure. Command T. And about right there should be good. Go back to just selecting our hairstyle layer. Okay, so I want this, kind of hair pulled back into a bun thing. Again, I'm showing the direction that I'm taking the lines. I'm also picturing some separation to show the bulk of the strands. And we'll do like a little bit of little flips off the back of that. I'm wanting to do these little strays kind of flying around. That's the other thing I try to do with hair to make it look a little more believable, is always have these little loose strands. And you can detail that at the end, so I'll elaborate on that as we do the rendering on this. Okay, so there's basically what I would draw out for my shape of hair. Okay, and to me I've got a little bit of form in there, and I can elaborate more on that now. Okay, so let's do this so I can show the progression of it a little bit better. Let's duplicate this, right click, duplicate layer. As long as both are selected, it'll duplicate both. You just got to kind of move them back together if you want to work with them side by side like I like to. Move these over. Oh, at least I thought I was. Okay, I guess this one and this one. Oh. Command to, there we go. You hold or hit command to select opposite of, if you hold shift, it'll select all the ones from the top when you click to the bottom one. So I hit command and I was able to select, the two not next to each other. Oh goodness, whatever. You get the point. All right, so now we've got that selected. Let's find the one where it's the back there. I want to erase this big ugly line work that gets in the way here. I want part of the ear to show there. And right about there, I think. Does that look good? Something like that. Okay, so it's starting to take a little bit more form. Now I'll take the other one. Let me just bring these together like they're supposed to be. Command T, scale her down. Put it up there, hit enter. Okay, so now let's try to really make this hair look a bit more cool. I get so confused with these layers, but no worries, we'll get there. Okay, so now what I want to show you, and I'll actually add one more layer, call this shadows. I'll take the pencil tool here, I'll size it up a little bit more. So I like to brush these shadows in a little bit quicker. You can do it with the smaller point, but you're just going to sit there and spend way too much time. So I just up the size of it a little bit more. One of the neat ways to do it too is like this. Grab the pen tool, and you got obviously any number of brushes that you can use here, but drop the opacity. Turn the brush size up and use it kind of like a fat marker. And just kind of brush in some of your shadows. I'm still going to do this in line work, but I just want to show you how working in your shadows can be easier this way. Okay, so now what I'm trying to do is make separations of the bulk of the strands of the hair. Now, I used to do it like this. I would do this big clump, space, big clump, space, big clump, and it's quick and it still kind of does a little bit of the job. But it doesn't quite look realistic. It looks, a little too animated or too ridiculous. So what I do here now is I try to picture the areas of the hair that are separated. And let's see if I can, like here, I would want to see a big shadow here because I'm trying to basically raise this area and this area. So I place the shadow in between. Maybe a little line break like that, just for some style. Here I see like, this kind of rolling under, so a shadow being cast there, here, there, all that can be in shadow, but we'll just kind of pick and choose some areas. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. I'm just basically, picking what looks cool. Like for instance, I see this line going here, and it almost looks like to me that maybe this is a strand that's on top of the hair and it highlights right there. So I'm going to put the shadow below it here and maybe another shadow right to the side of it, and I can make it look like there's a strand of hair kind of on top, doing something like that. Almost like it's flipping back forward again, Now another thing I like to do to see if I'm heading in the right direction as I work through this stuff is I'll basically just zoom out, see if it pulls together visually, and I'll toggle that on and off. And I think it's starting to work. It's starting to have, a bit of a flow. It doesn't look too stiff, which is a big no-no for hair, obviously. It's supposed to look soft and radiant or just flowing or something. So you got to think about that as you're trying to draw it to try to, keep that in mind and get that to go. So again, if you notice, I'm just separating, my areas that I'm drawing into. I'm not, filling all of it in at once, or, making sure to leave those separations of white, because that's where you get your transition, your highs and lows of the pattern here. Okay, so now I can start, now that I've got a little bit of the bulk of the shadows kind of in place, I can start to worry a little bit more about some highlights, some texturing, stuff like that, some rendering, I guess. So now what I would do to do that is, I'm always keeping in mind where my light source is as I do this stuff. And to me, the light source is kind of like this. Okay, so if the light source is hitting the top of the head, then I can either fill in some larger shadows off to this side. Also keeping in mind that if her hair is dark, then you're going to use larger bulks of shadow. If this is blonde hair, then you're going to use just real light amounts of shadow and more rendering lines. So let's say the hair is a bit darker, and I'm filling more of this in because of that. Here, throw some of the shadowing that I would picture being on the back of the neck. And as far as rendering lines, that's when I would size the brush down a few. I would start to put in some my little lines that I like so much. It's probably going to give me carpal tunnel some age, I imagine. But yeah, I love to throw in my little lines, my little render lines. It's good times. And then the other thing is, after I get some of those in place, I'll start to put in, finally, after all this, I'll start to actually draw what I consider the strands of the hair. And that's one thing I really want to make a note of with you guys, is that I think in the beginning when I drew, I started with the strands. It just kind of makes sense. You think a hair is, every single strand of hair. So you start to draw that way, and you always come up with this really spaghetti looking kind of, fake looking hair. But then if you start approaching it like this, and you only put in just enough of those lines at the end, it looks a lot more natural. So take it as you will. I don't know if that's, the perfect way to think about it, but I know that I definitely was coming at drawing hair from the totally wrong perspective when I started. But that's always the process of becoming better at something. That's why you look back as a professional and you look back and go, man, I really was fighting myself on half of these techniques. And it's funny too, because art is just really, in my mind, the more that I learn it and study it, just a series of techniques. I really do believe that anybody can get great at it if they put in enough time, because you're essentially just studying these techniques, plugging them into memory, and then utilizing them as need be. So don't think that you got to be some amazing artist, because as I've said in my other videos, I've got boxes and boxes of bad drawings to prove that you can become a lot better at it. Okay, so there's you know, and again, I'll pan back. I see a little bit of what needs to be a little bit more shading to round out the form where I'm putting these lines. I'll do that sometimes to kind of remind myself. And then you can even do like another series of little lines like this, and you can give it a little bit more sheen on the top if you want to make it look like, you know, light is glaring directly, you know, on the top of her dome there. So you can do a little bit of those, quick and easy. And that's it. I mean, that's really how I do it, you know. I guess what I'll do is I'll go ahead and time lapse this last part, and you know, fine tune this even another stage to show you how I'd make it match the other portion of the drawing. So yeah, let's do it. Alright, so that's the finished product. Minus one thing, I'm going to show you one more quick technique and we'll call it done. So that's how I would render it and get it to look a little bit more finalized. One last thing I would probably do, or sometimes I draw it in as I'm going, but I would do the little wisp or strands of hair at the very end just to give it another layer of depth or coolness. So I can draw a few of those in like this, just kind of random. A few will have come down like this. I do this a lot in my digital paintings too, but it just gives it another little bit of realism. You know, if the stuff looks too clumped up without a few of these little strays, it just tends to not look as realistic. And then in this part, it looks kind of neat. Hold Alt, you can select the background real quick for white, and just kind of paint in there with white and highlight those little strands. And you can, if it's a dark enough hairstyle like I got going on here, I can't see where I put the other strands at, but you can basically just draw them in, you know, with white, kind of like that. And it works even without the shadow if the overall design is dark enough. So just a few of these well placed kind of, you know, just adds a little bit more style. Hit X to go back from dark to light. Yeah, just a little bit of that. You don't even have to, if you notice, you don't even have to hit the top area. It shows up pretty well without it. You know, veins kind of work the same way. I'm actually going to do a video on that too. But you know, that's really not the main purpose of this one. So at any rate, that's the finished product of this one. Next, I'll do another hairstyle or two for women. I'll also switch to men's hair, show some different variations in there. So be sure to get your requests in. This was actually a video request that I addressed, so I do attend to those when I get around to them. So when you do find these videos helpful, please like, share, subscribe, and it allows me to keep focusing on the channel. You can also support this channel by visiting my Patreon page in the description link below. Any support is always helpful and welcome. So, as always, keep drawing, keep having fun, and we will talk to you soon.